Pets Add Life, your guide to the latest in pet trends, products, and the joy of the human-animal bond, with Kristen Levine and Chris Bonafati, powered by the American Pet Products Association and Dog TV.
Hey, Chris. This is the first time I've seen you since Westminster.
I know, it's been a while. It's been a hot minute. How's everything over there?
Everything's good. Everything's good. I was listening to your show from there, and I was realizing like you just have this constant energy, and so I've decided to start caffeine loading before we record the show, so I can kind of meet you where you're at, or at least attempt
caffeine
to.
loading is a forbidden technique. It was taught to me by my many mentors, and it is similar to the carbo loading that marathon runners do. You just get it all stocked up, pent out, and then over the course of like a 2-hour recording session, you just absolutely blast it into the microphone, and then you take a nap afterwards.
I take a nap.
Yeah, you got to take a nap afterwards. But everybody, hey, listeners, welcome to the Pets Add Life podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Chris Bonafati, joined as always by the wonderful Kristen Levine. And today we're going to be bringing you two amazing pet stories, two awesome guests that we've interviewed, 2 product recommendations, and then we're going to answer 2 of your questions. I can't wait. The weather's been amazing over here. I feel like summer is finally starting, except for today. It is very rainy, but other than that, it's been amazing. Yeah, summer is in full swing. Yeah, which is great. So I can't wait to hear what we have to talk about on this episode.
Yeah. So do you want to kick it off with our stories?
Yeah, story time, huh? Story time.
Kristen and Chris present Story Time.
So as a New Yorker, we all observed the Met Gala recently.
Yes.
We saw all the beautiful outfits and all the celebrities get their pictures taken on the red carpet. Well, via the Associated Press, I have learned that there is a pet gala in New York as well. And it is hosted at the Museum of Dogs. This comes from the Associated Press by John Carucci. Thank you, John. And I love his opening line. I'm going to read it word for word because it's right up my alley. They may call it a catwalk, but the pet gala is the dog's time to shine. Hilarious. I love a good pun. So I'm going to put this article in the show notes because the pictures are absolutely astounding. You have to see some of these pictures, folks. We've got dogs in all sorts of flowery dresses posing. They look so nice. Their handlers are all dressed to the nines. And the proceeds benefit the Museum of Dogs, which is an amazing museum. Kristen, have you ever been before?
I have not been, but I've heard about it. For a while, wasn't it touring for a while? Wasn't it touring the country? Is it now in one location?
It is in New York.
Okay.
It's more of an official museum setup where they will move some of their exhibits out and tour, right?
Gotcha.
But they have some history of dogs in there, some famous artwork that is of dogs, all sorts of cool stuff. It's one of those hidden gems of New York that will never make it onto like a top 10 list. But the locals know, like if you were to ask a local, what's like a fun little thing for me to do in this neighborhood? It's a great place. I would highly recommend stopping by and seeing, but seriously, people, these pictures and the videos, I am so impressed on how they got some of these dogs in these things. I'm looking at a picture right now of some type of terrier mix. I'm going to do my best to describe it in what I could only describe as Salem witch chic.
Oh my.
Okay, like a lacy black flowy dress that kind of descends all the way down to a red carpet in lacy transparent fills, and the dog is turned around and looking back at the camera in like a seductive sultry pose. It is absolutely amazing.
That's getting weird now.
Yeah, it was weird to begin with. We just didn't know it because we're dog people.
Right. I wonder if they've got these couture designers designing these gowns for the dogs.
It does not mention anything about the designers, which is so funny because when you do the Met Gala, it's like really all about the fashionistas and what their ideas are. But I mean, this is it's really great fun. It's great fun. It was hosted just this past weekend on May 21st. So perhaps all of you are seeing some news out there yourself about the pet gala, but I'll be sure to get that link into the show notes so that everybody can see.
Please do. I can't wait to check it out.
What about you, Kristen? What's your story?
Well, my story this week is really one that started out as a personal story, and basically I'm kind of leading up to something that I created that we're going to be celebrating all month of June, and that's what's called Pet Anxiety Awareness Month. And the story behind it is back in this is probably going back 15 years ago. I had a dog named Buck. He was I adopted him at the SPCA. He was a yellow lab. He was my soul dog. I mean, we were so connected. But Buck had a lot of anxiety issues. He had severe separation anxiety. He had a lot of noise anxiety. And at the time we lived in Florida, so there were thunderstorms every day in the summertime. And, I noticed these symptoms like him hiding or whining or clinging to me, like probably when he was like 4 or 5 years old. And I'd never experienced having a dog that had those types of anxieties. So what happened is over the years, it got progressively worse and worse and worse, to the point where there was a period of about 3 years where my husband and I never traveled together. One of us always had to be home because he was so difficult to manage. I've got pictures that I took of how he would literally chew into the baseboards and the molding in the doorway when we would leave. It was like a horror scene when we would come home and just find drywall over the floor. I mean, he was a mess. And what I did was I was referred to a veterinary behaviorist, which is kind of like a doggy psychiatrist. And this was Dr. Lisa Radasta. And she explained to me that what Buck was experiencing was very akin to a panic attack that we humans can have. And that every single time we left the house, he was having a panic attack. Every time he heard thunder rolling, he was having a panic attack. And that's a kind of thing that if you don't address the symptoms early on, it does get progressively worse because they're, the brain, the pathways in the brain, the neural pathways just get strengthened every time, these events happen. So I don't want to make the story too long, but bottom line is I knew that, what I learned, and we ultimately did get him help. And it was a combination of behavior modification, environmental modification, and pharmaceutical help for him because he was so advanced. And I just decided, you know what? I want to do something to educate pet parents about how fear, anxiety, and stress can affect your pet and how important it is to get a handle on it when you first start to see those signs. So fast forward 2017, we launched Pet Anxiety Awareness Month, and we're celebrating our 8th annual this year. So I put together a free download for pet parents. It's called the Calming Solutions Capsule Guide. And if you go to petanxieTyawareness.com, you can download it for free. And it's a whole list of resources of, great calming products that are over the counter, resources, veterinarians, veterinary specialists, and that sort of thing to help you all, to help, pet parents recognize those signs early. And even if if the signs are advanced, that they can understand better how to manage the situation, because it really affects the pet's quality of life as well as the family too. So, and shout out to Dog TV, who's our sponsor for like the 5th year in a row.
How did I have no idea that you were the brain behind Pet Anxiety Awareness?
You didn't know that?
How did I was completely unaware. Sitting
it's
here
not about
just
me, Chris.
marinating in my ignorance. Yeah, there you go. Okay. Yeah, humble as the Lord himself. Absolutely. Yeah, completely understood. But that's absolutely amazing. I know, like especially coming out of the pandemic, there's a lot of people who are wondering why, my dog's so anxious because they've never really had to be alone. Now I have to go back to work. So let's, dear listeners, keep your eyes on that website for some information and some tools that might be beneficial to both you and your dog, because you don't want to end up like Kristen, where travel becomes difficult, or even something as simple as going to the store becomes, a process because of, the mental health of your animal. So definitely be on the lookout for those tips and tricks.
Chris, I'm really excited about our first guest today because he has a story that I can relate to. I'm not going to give it away now, but all I can say is that he is paving the way for higher standards for dog services like doggy daycare, training, things like that. And he's got a really great story. So let's take a listen.
Beyond the Leash, exploring the untold stories of pet passion and professionalism.
All right, joining us now is Dan Rubenstein with PUPS Pet Club. Dan, how are you doing today?
Very well, Chris.
So, Dan, you've been called Doggy Dan, trained dogs for celebrities, for the rich, the famous, for the regular Joe. You've kind of been all across the states, helping people with their animals. You're part of PUPS Pet Club, which is an amazing organization. Why don't you give us a quick rundown of what it is you do, what your expertise is, before we jump into things here?
Yeah, well, I have a long history in pet care. I never expected to be in this business. I was working for Accenture on a project in Chicago, Illinois, and enlisted my dog in a pet exercising service. They came and picked him up every day and dropped him off. Took him to a park during the day, and unfortunately, on July 30th, '99, they took him out on a day that was extremely hot, way too hot for him to be outside, and he ended up, passing away about 14 hours later. It was a tragic event that inspired me to get into the business because I just didn't want what happened to me to happen to anyone else. And when I got into
Yeah.
the business, I started learning about all aspects of the business. I think you need to be a good operator. You need to understand what the doggy daycare attendant does, the trainer, the driver, the person at the front desk, the groomer even. And what I gravitated to, which you alluded to, was training. I was fascinated with training and what my dogs could do. I had a Saint Bernard, another Saint Bernard, after Sydney's passing, and I had a Rottweiler. And I did a apprenticeship under a guy by the name of Alex Brooks, who was one of the most talented trainers in the Midwest at that time. And Alex continues to train dogs to this day. We remain friends, and he taught me everything he knows. I enjoyed all of my time with Alex, and we've continued to work together over the years. And like I said, remain friends. And I became, I guess, a fairly good dog trainer in my own right. And like you said, I got an opportunity to work with some amazing people, really interesting people. Their dogs were much more interesting in my book. No matter how interesting they were to the public, their dogs were even more interesting. And then I've helped people from coast to coast, all the way to California, to New York, and it's been a really amazing ride. 25 years in the business, and today, I'm doing less dog training, but we do have a amazing team of dog trainers that work with us at PUPS Pet Club. They're some of the most talented group that I've ever worked with, and they do a great job helping pet parents all across New York and Chicago right now.
Dan, Pups Pet Club and all the work that you've done with dogs since Sydney's passing is, leaves such a wonderful legacy for Sydney. How do you? I think this is definitely one of every pet parent's worst nightmares, is leaving your dog in the care of someone else that you trust and something terrible happening. How do you ensure? How are you able to instill the trust in your clients through the work that you do at PUPS Pet Club?
I mean, that's a great question, Kristen. I think a lot of pet parents aren't educated about what it is to uh, run a doggy daycare, and how should the facility be built, how should it be staffed, how should you train your team, what chemicals should you use to even clean the place that are pet safe. People don't understand the commercial aspects of pet care. So I think for us, it's just reliability and consistency and education. Those three words ring true to me. We have to be reliable and trustworthy to our pet parents every day. The same experience is given to their dogs and to them. So that consistency is key. And we've got to make sure that our team is well trained, well educated, so that they can inform our pet parents about what we do that's different. Because listen, at the end of the day, I think you can walk into most pet care centers and you'll see really happy team members who are excited to see the dogs. It's what's happening behind those closed doors that's what's really important. And I think that's what
True.
our differentiating factor is.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have plenty of listeners out there who either don't have a pet and are considering getting a dog, or they have a different pet, they're considering getting a dog. And a big question on their minds is, especially in this new normal with hybrid work, a lot more places that you could bring your dog with you to work, is what sort of strategy should people be taking kind of coming out of the pandemic, getting a dog? Any advice for a new dog owner on how to either get their dog properly socialized, get their dog around other animals when they or when they have to go on vacation, how to find a good place to properly board their dog?
Yeah. I mean, things have certainly changed since the pandemic, Chris, and a lot more people have gotten dogs, and so pet ownership is up significantly. And I think people, like you said, they're working from home, and so they're getting to spend a lot more time with their dogs. So daycare is no longer necessarily a necessity, but more of an amenity. And what folks need to understand is that daycare is important for socialization of your animal and exercise. So dogs need stimulation. They need to be exercised. And if you're not doing it yourself because you're on the laptop in meetings like these all day long, you can't pay attention to your dog. And your dog's going to end up being, unfortunately, disruptive or destructive around your home. So whether it's daycare or training or grooming, there's something that you need to do actively with your dog. The best thing you can do is have a plan. So when you get your pup right away, know exactly what it is that you're going to do from the very first moment that he or she arrives in your home. And from there, you can execute on the plan, right? And that's gonna take a lot of people outside of yourself. It's going to take your family and friends, and it's going to take professionals like us. Raising a dog takes a village, just like raising a little baby at home. And there's a lot to it. And if you just say, okay, I'm going to get the dog for companionship and he's just going to be around while I work, well, that's going to, not be the best for you or your dog. And so daycare and training, grooming, all the services that places like ours offer, this holistic approach to care can really bring a great balance to your relationship with your dog.
Yeah, and if you're lucky enough to be in Chicago or New York, I mean, PUPS Pet Club is like a one-stop shop for all of those needs, right?
Yeah, I mean, we do everything for dogs: daycare, overnights, training, grooming, dog walking, veterinary care. There's not much that we don't do for dogs. We're really focused on enriching the lives of our dogs and the pet parents that are lucky enough to take care of them.
Well, tell us a little bit about what I looked at I was on their website earlier today, and I noticed there are memberships. So what kind of programs are offered at PUPS Pet Club?
Yeah, that's interesting that you saw that, Kristen. That is a trend in the industry. I think we just were a little ahead of the curve there, but we consider all of our customers members. You know, our stores are not stores; they're clubs. We want them
Ah,
to be a third place for our pet parents, pups, and our pet parents themselves. So we don't really consider, okay, you're a customer coming in. It's not transactional, it's more relational in nature. And so we have a lot of club events. People are welcome in the club anytime. There's glass everywhere so you can see everything that's going on, and if you can't see into a room, then there's a screen that'll show you exactly what's
mm.
going on.
Well,
So
that really
it's very
and that
much,
instills a lot of trust.
exactly. Well, if
Yep,
you, I feel like if you do the right thing, you should have nothing to hide, right?
absolutely.
And for us, so members are more or less an inclusive term, and that's what really we want everyone who comes in our doors to feel like.
Yeah, I think that's great. And the unfortunate reality is not everybody's going to have access to a PUPS Pet Club. So for some of our listeners out there who may be trying to find the right daycare center for their animal, what are some green flags, some really good signs that the place they're looking at is going to be a good, to the same standard possibly that PUPS Pet Club could offer?
Right. Well, I think first and foremost is the interaction that you're getting with the people there. You're going to get a gut feeling as to whether or not you can trust those folks. Uh, you
Mhm.
know, go with your gut, right? It's not going to lie to you. You should look at the overall, care of the facility itself. Does it smell? Is it clean? Uh, just like we touched upon, is there transparency in their operation? Do they have glass so that you can see into the areas where dogs are being cared for? Do they offer you reports on how your dog is behaving, what they're eating, even
Mhm.
their activity level to make sure that your dog is well cared for while you're away or even while you have your dog groomed? The telltale signs overall of a really well run facility are people who are engaged, team members who are engaged, and care that is exemplary of how you would care for your dog yourself. Certainly, look at the reviews, online. That's a
Mhm.
great indication to see what other people just like yourself are considering when they're going to, a dog daycare or a grooming facility. And talk to your neighbors and people in the community. They're going to know, you know, uh, uh, better than anyone who's good and who's not so good. So I would say that if you approach it like you're approaching your work, where you're investigative and doing the research, you're gonna land at a great spot.
Yeah, and I imagine your dog's level of enthusiasm to go to the club is probably part of the telltale sign that it's a great experience for your dog.
Definitely, Kristen. But it doesn't stop there. You need to know what's going on behind closed doors as well.
Absolutely. So tell us, how many locations do you have in Chicago and New York?
Yeah, we have 6 in Chicago and 2 in New York.
Okay,
We're
great.
about to announce
And
2 more in Chicago, and we've got a few more
wow,
here in New York that we're
that's
going to
great. Do
be
you have
putting up
plans
as
to
well.
expand to any other cities?
Yes, we do. But right now, like we're focused on New York and Chicago, so that's in the
Right.
future. But right
Sure.
now, there's just a lot of work for us to do in these 2 markets. We're just getting started. We feel like
Yeah, that's
there's so
awesome.
many great
Uh,
pet parents out there, tons of folks, and we feel like we're elevating the industry because this is an industry in its infancy, and a lot of people came into it for, let's just say, the wrong reasons,
mhm.
and we want to make sure that our care practices are setting the standard across the entire industry.
Yeah, and thank you for doing that because as you said, the industry is young, even though, for those of us who've been working in the pet industry for many years, it doesn't seem like it's young, but it truly is. And it's changing, it's just changed so much, in the past 10, 15 years. So
Yeah.
thank you for all that you're doing to elevate the standards,
Yep.
and, to instilling trust in our pet parents so that we feel comfortable bringing our dogs to the club. And what's the website, Dan, so people can find out more about PUPS Pet Club?
Yeah, I know it's a tongue twister, right? It is pupspetclub.com, and try to say it 10 times fast. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Dan. We appreciate all the work that you do, and be sure to tell all your friends about the podcast so they can learn more about it too.
I will. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Dan.
Pets add life.
It was a pleasure speaking with Doggy Dan, and I know how difficult it can be to leave your animal somewhere, especially if it's not something you're used to doing, if it's something that you sort of need in a pinch or there's been an emergency. So it's good to know that there's folks out there who are pushing this industry forward, really challenging the status quo on what is considered acceptable care for an animal. I had poked around the website. I sort of wish I was a dog now so I could go hang out at the
Go
PUPS
ahead at
Club.
the
Like, it
club.
just seems like a pretty chill place. Like, yeah, like instead of having to go to work every day, just, go hang out with my friends, watch dog TV, get some scratches and some treats. It sounds nice.
It does. It does. It's great that he's educated us even more, because now when you're going to look for a facility like that, I would ask for a tour. I want to see the whole place,
Yeah,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
and just like he said, I think the most important thing he said was trust your gut. After you have a tour and you get to know the staff, I think you can you'll make the right decision for your dog.
Yeah, absolutely. Our next guest is Dr. Tiffany Tupler, who is the manager of veterinary services with Chewy. You may actually recognize her if you watch Dog TV, their show Vets A to Z. She has an episode or two on there, so this may be a familiar face. We sat down to talk about all things veterinary care, so let's go ahead and have a listen to that.
Joining us now is Dr. Tiffany Tupler, manager of veterinary services at Chewy. Welcome, Dr. Tiffany.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's so nice to meet you. And what caught my attention when I first found out we were talking to you on the show today was that you're the manager of veterinary services at Chewy. I think a lot of people don't know that Chewy has veterinary services.
Yeah, we actually have a very large range of what veterinarians actually do at Chewy. So for most, I think outward public knows that we now have clinical hospitals. I actually work more on the virtual side. So a lot of what I do is client education, client outreach, what I like to call preventative, health education. So really touching and getting into the lives of pet parents, helping them understand, empower them with their options, and educate them on the value of what veterinarians and our community has to offer for them.
Yeah,
I
that's
see.
great. I know for me, as a 30-something millennial who gets anxiety when he has to pick up the phone and order a pizza, the prospect of trying to find a vet can be pretty daunting. So can you talk a bit about how virtual care through Chewy could be a good option for somebody who's sort of nervous to take that first step?
Yeah, great question. So I think a big thing to really help people understand what are your options is if you think of like tele-advice or like telemedicine in general, it kind of branches into like two different, like telehealth. They kind of branch into two things. So everybody knows about telemedicine. That's like you're straightforward. I've been to my doctor and then they like can call me on the phone, or I can have a chat, or like maybe a nurse can jump on, they can change my refills. We can talk about conditions that I previously been diagnosed with. And then like they can do follow-ups. Usually there's like a limitation based on the law, but they can usually help you with your day-to-day stuff. On the other side, you kind of have more of that for the millennials and stuff. You're kind of like your influencer. So we get to do education. We get to do general advice. We get to talk to you about, maybe your vet was talking a mile a minute, which we're really good at. They were talking about thyroid problems and the kidneys and my cat and my dog, and I don't know what's going on. We're there to help you kind of understand, take that extra 20, 30 minutes to really get an idea of what's going on, set up a plan, help you understand your next steps. And then that way you're more empowered when you have to make that phone call and chat with your vet about, hey, I really want to ask more questions about this condition. And I know it's okay. I don't have to be so anxious anymore.
That's amazing. I like totally agree with that concept. I had to get a root canal once, and I spent, I don't know, 6 hours on the internet learning about the process and how it works and everything like that. And that sense of preparedness can bring such levity to a situation that could be really stressful. And it's great to have a partner out there knowing that there's somebody you can reach out to when you're really feeling like you've lost control of something.
Yeah. And another thing that I was really happy to learn, Dr. Tiffany, is that you have a special area of focus, which is in behavior. And this month, June, is Pet Anxiety Awareness Month. And earlier in the show, Chris and I were talking about, this event and how we're celebrating it, and the importance of educating pet parents about how to recognize those signs of, stress and anxiety in their pets early on. So what do you get those types of questions from pet parents that are looking for ways to calm their pets? Or
Yes. I'd probably say it's just in general, being in this field, it's probably the number one question we get about behavior because it's so relatable, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chris, you just talked about it. We
Yeah.
all know what anxiety is in
Yeah.
people.
I
and
am the dog with anxiety.
Right. And it's funny because we talk about connections with our dogs. I mean, dogs were bred and domesticated to be our best friends. So like they do pick up on anxiety. The big things to remember is they're not us. So their anxieties look and act very differently. And there's things that we do differently to help them. And I think that's the big thing to remind people is like, even though it may work for us, it's not always the same thing for them. And a lot of times it's a partnership, right? It's setting realistic expectations and really helping pet parents understand that this is a partnership. It requires patience, time, work, just like our own mental health and our own anxieties. It's the same thing, except using our avenues appropriately so we can get the best short and long-term help.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, how do people access this advice from a veterinarian, like you at Chewy?
Yeah, great question. So currently, right now, we actually have two different services, kind of under the same umbrella. With our service, we actually offer a free chat platform. So you can actually chat in and ask your questions. So for Chris's question about anxiety, like what does anxiety look like in my dog? Or I notice every time someone honks a horn, my dog is like losing his mind and I don't know what to do. And so what we do is we kind of just help people, right? We empower them with education. Like, hey, it's okay. Like dogs get anxious just like people. And here are some things that may look like. And by chance, have you talked to a vet? Because in many cases, people don't realize that just like in us, pain, discomfort, not sleeping, maybe having an underlying problem can cause a lot of those anxieties. And so like actually educating people that dogs are equally as complex as we are. And you've got to start first with a vet just to have that basic conversation. And then we can talk to you more about the now. Like, what can I do now that isn't necessarily doctor related, but things that I can start doing to modify my house, help me set my own realistic expectations. We do that in chat. And then we also actually have a video where you can actually chat with one of our veterinarians and then they can chat you through some of these processes.
That's awesome. That sounds like right up my alley. Let's dive a little deeper though into some of those solutions so that people can understand. We've kind of got identifying the behavior, making the phone call, and then what are some of the solutions that people can expect? Is it product based? Is it sort of a training type thing? What can people expect coming out the other end on how they're going to go about treating that kind of behavior?
Yeah, that's my favorite question. The way I like to think of it is if you break it into 4 different pillars, right? So if you think of behavior, just make it relatable, make it to yourself, right? You don't walk into your therapist and expect this magic medication and then poof, everything's gone. I'm done. I never have to go back. I don't have to talk to anybody. My world is perfect, right? And so I think like when we talk about these pillars, it's really setting a realistic expectation, understanding that there are mountains you're going to climb and sometimes you're going to fall down them. Sometimes your dog can't go there with you, and that's okay. So it's realizing that your end goal is to have a great relationship with your dog. It may not be that perfect relationship that you always saw in a movie, but you can get there setting a good expectation. Those 4 pillars are really easy. So to your point, Chris, it's all of them. We like to use them in a multimodal approach. So what that means is like we want to add them all together because then we get all the pros and we get less of the cons. So to your point, yes, modification is the most important thing, and how you implement it is the most important thing. We all want instant gratification, but the thing is to remember is that it's a journey with you and your pet. So understanding what their needs are along with your needs and making that the solution is what training and modification is. It takes a lot of work for you, not me. It's actually pretty easy for me to tell you all about it. That's the work. You've got to work at it. And it's patience. It's just like raising a kid. They don't come out perfect, and now all of a sudden you have an Einstein. Like you've got to work, and you've got challenges and everything else with it. There's also kind of like to your point with products. There's 2 different ways to think of products. We have pheromones, which are science based. Dogs, unlike people, produce things that help them feel comfortable. I think of it like the spa day. When you have that lavender, that chamomile, and you walk in and you're like, oh my gosh, this is great. Think of pheromones that dogs actually produce this, and we know with science that it helps them calm themselves. Is it a magic cure? No, but it's great to add in, especially when you're working with your dog with modifications. And there are tons of really great products out there that have pheromones. I always ask people too, like, come and chat with us. We'll talk to you about the science. We'll talk to you about the ones that we know work, and then some that you could try that maybe will work best for you. Supplements are another great thing, but again, remember, they're not the magic cure, but they can really help. I mean, they have everything from powders to capsules to liquids to all different types of stuff. I always say be really careful though, because you don't want to spend a ton of money on something when you're looking at a multimodal approach. Remember, it's time and patience and modification. But again, if it kind of builds that connection with you, like they love getting the snack, I can see them getting calmer, then they're great options. And then, like I said before, the final one is it's talking with your vet, making sure, like, what happens if all of this was hyperthyroidism or a thyroid problem? Oh my gosh, that was a lot of work and a lot of time and a lot of money that I just used when I should have just gone to the vet in the first place. So, like I said, there isn't a magic cure. You've got to kind of do it in steps and stages.
I love that you talked about pheromones, because that's the product of the week that I'm going to share. We always share 2 products of the week, Chris and I, after we talk to our guests, and you just did my intro for me. So awesome.
Good.
Yeah, you're making us sound really smart. Like really smart, which is awesome. You're doing a great job. Yeah, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. Although when we get to that section in Product of the Week, I'm going to look pretty stupid. So stay tuned if you're listening to see how that pans out. But this is all absolutely great advice. I know for me, it's an understanding that any problem that you are going to have in health in general, whether it's yourself or for your pet, it's a journey, and that journey requires a lot of key partners. And it's great to know that those partners are becoming more accessible.
Absolutely. And Dr. Tiffany, so for this vet chat that you were speaking about, do people just go to the Chewy website, or do we use an app, or how do we access that interaction?
You can do both. You can actually access it through the web. So you can just go on chewy.com. If you look at your account, you'll see like connect with the vet. That's us. You can also use it through your mobile app as well. Again, there's no commitment to join, so you can always just jump on and test it out for yourself. It's pretty easy.
That's great.
This is fantastic. Well, and I love the timing of this interview, because with the summer thunderstorms and the 4th of July coming up, I bet you're going to be getting a lot of questions from some nervous pet parents that have dogs that have, fear of loud noises.
Yeah. We have a lot of good advice for them too. So
awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody's chomping at the bit to check it out. Dr. Tiffany, this has been awesome. You are absolutely amazing to talk to. Made everything so clear. I feel better just talking to you. I feel like I've relaxed. Are there pheromones in this room? I feel like I've relaxed a little bit.
So you're good.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. But thank you so much for joining us and sharing some of your knowledge with us and our listeners.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Pets add life.
Wow, she was an awesome guest. And
yeah, that was fun.
It was a lot of fun. And I did not realize that Chewy offered that kind of service. Free. She said it was free.
Yeah, I know as soon as my cat does something weird, I know the first thing I'm doing. I get it. Like that's absolutely great. And how about that perfect segue into our next segment into Product of the Week? Let's just jump right on in then.
The Product of the Week.
Okay, Kristen, it's time to talk about our products of the week, our products of the week. Do you want to go first this week?
Sure, I'll be happy to go first. And I'm going to talk about a product that is along with the Pet Anxiety Awareness Month theme. I'm going to talk about pheromones. Pheromones are basically what they are is they're calming products that mimic the natural pheromones that animals produce to communicate a sense of safety and well-being to their offspring. So like mother cats and mother dogs produce these calming pheromones that soothe their puppies or kittens. And bSerene is a company that comes to mind. I particularly like them because they have so many different pheromone solutions. They've got the diffusers that plug into the wall. They've got the sprays that you can spray on your pet's bedding. They've got little collars they can wear. And the idea is that if you kind of layer these things with pheromones, like the room and the bedding, you're really going to increase that sense of calm. When the animal breathes it in, they literally start to feel more relaxed. So I think that's a really kind of nature inspired way to calm your pet. This would work best for dogs and cats who are having those kind of early signs of anxiety or stress. And I always recommend it as the first thing that pet parents try when they start to see those signs. So check out bSerene, because they have so many different pheromone products, and you can see which ones work the best for your pet.
That's really cool. I mean, personally, when I hear pheromones, my mind goes to one place. I'm going to try and keep it PG rated.
Calming pheromones.
Right. So, but I didn't know that that's a thing. I thought that they were, my understanding of pheromones is that they were used for what one thing.
Well, there's different kinds of pheromones that have
that's
different effects.
That's so interesting to learn. Yeah. And so there's all sorts of different stuff. I had no idea. That's really cool. Learn something new every day. Who would have thunk that not even Chris
had
is
to
the
take
source
it there.
of all knowledge?
You had to take it there.
Yeah. That's unfortunate, but the reality that we live in is that's where my brain goes sometimes.
What's your product?
Speaking of where my brain goes sometimes, it is summertime, and I've been, stringing together some fun summer concepts and treats in the last few shows. And when I think of summer, I think of ice cream. I think of,
Yummy.
late night runs to the ice cream parlor and getting myself a hot fudge sundae. I was just talking to my coworkers about ice cream this morning, and it got me all hungry. And isn't it sad that dogs can't eat ice cream? It's just so sad. They would love it so much, wouldn't they? And you get, with the whole pup cup thing. Well, listen, folks, I've got the answer for you. So here in New York, Brooklyn specifically, but they're all over New York, there's the Van Leeuwen ice cream chain, which is, of New York infamy. And they are partnering with Ollie, and Ollie makes human grade pet food.
Right.
So they are partnering this summer to make a flavor of ice cream, peanut butter banana, that is 100% dog safe. And it's going to be available online in Van Leeuwen scoop shops. And they're also going to be partnering with Petco.
Cool.
So if you are like me and feels guilty whenever you eat ice cream in front of a dog, you do not need to feel that guilt anymore. You could run out, you could get a nice tasty frozen treat for your animal, and you could share an ice cream cone together. Which is absolutely amazing how far we've come as a society.
I love that.
This is a top of the mind concern for people.
You mentioned that you could find it online. Are you looking at Ollie, or how do you find it online? Do you know?
It would be petco.com. Yeah, you go to
gotcha.
petco.com, and they, however you get your Petco product. Petco does delivery and store pickup, all sorts of stuff nowadays coming out of the
Tulip, we're going to go
pandemic.
get you some ice cream.
Yeah, is that awesome? Yeah.
Oh, she's so excited.
Yeah, I would be too. If somebody,
you know what? In all seriousness, it's not a good idea to give your pet real ice cream. It's full of sugar and dairy, and don't do it. So I think that's a terrific product of the week. By the way, it's not good for us either.
Yeah. But here's the thing: is humans, we can brush our teeth and take care of our teeth quite easily, while dogs have much bigger issues. So avoid the sugary treats. I can guarantee you that this ice cream, if you were to taste it as a person, you would wonder why it tastes so bland. It's because there's no sugar in it. But it would be just fine to give your dog. So check it out.
Q&As.
And now, Kristen, I think we're going to take some questions from the audience.
We are. This is part of our 2, the 2 questions from the audience. And let's remind everybody how they can submit their question. And just go to petsaddlife.org/podcast. And you can scroll to the bottom of that page and you can submit your own question. You can try to stump Chris and I, or you can even leave a voice message and we can play it on the show to hear your question. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Our first one today is from Laura, and she's in Boston, and she says, my dog has started to show signs of arthritis as he gets older. What are some effective treatments or lifestyle changes I can implement to help manage his pain and improve his mobility? You want to start, or do you want me to tackle this one?
Yeah, I could start. Arthritis is rough for animals. They usually get it in their hips, or I don't know. You call this an elbow still on a dog? I'm not sure. As you can tell, I'm not a vet. So that's number one is your vet is going to be able to recommend some great supplements. There are some amazing supplements that can, there's obviously no cure for arthritis, but there are some things that can help alleviate some of the inflammation that arthritis causes. And what's really great about the modern pet industry is that those supplements don't need to be delivered in pill form anymore. There's all sorts of great food toppers or little, they even do supplements that you kind of squirt on top of the food and mix it into the food and it tastes like gravy. And there's all sorts of different ways to deliver that supplement to your dog where they won't even notice that they're being treated with a medicine. They'll feel like they're just getting a special treat. But this is definitely a conversation that you should be having with your vet because there's varying degrees of arthritis. There is, the beginning stages where preventive care can really help a lot. And then there's the later stages where your goal is really just going to be maximizing the comfort of your pet at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And along with that, Laura asked about lifestyle changes too. And I think it's important to be really mindful and remember that our pets age so much more quickly than we do. So pets can start to show arthritis at a what we would consider a very young age. So like 4, 5, 6, 7. That's how early it can have onset. So if you notice that your pet is a little slower to get up or having a little bit more trouble with the stairs, then you definitely want to pull back on their typical like activities in terms of like length of their walk or how much playtime they spend, or a lot of pets in general are great at masking pain and discomfort. So they might, go to the dog park and just have a blast with their doggy friends and they come home and like a couple of hours later, they're limping around. So it's really up to you as the pet parent to kind of manage their activity level. And as Chris said, I think the most important thing you can do though is to see your veterinarian and to determine what stage of arthritis your pet has and what he or she recommends that you do in terms of supplements, toppers, even medication. I know medication can be very helpful for dogs and cats that are, maybe in some more advanced stages. So hope that helps, Laura.
Tulip agreed with that point.
She did.
Yeah, it was a bark of agreement. That was a great question. Thank you, Laura. Our next question, and I'm going to pick this one, Kristen, and you're going to not like it, is going to be from Ethan in Miami, Florida.
Okay.
Who is asking about his betta fish. I've noticed my betta fish has been developing fin rot. What are the best ways to treat fin rot and prevent it from happening again in the future? And while normally we never kind of pose ourselves as aquatics experts, this is a problem that I experienced growing up. I had a betta fish. I had fin rot.
You did?
And so this is what I'm
so glad you have experience because I got nothing.
Yeah, so fin rot is caused by one of two things. It's either a bacterial or a fungal infection, and really easy to spot in a betta fish. Betta fish, well known for those beautiful flowing fins, and if they end up literally looking like they're rotting, holes in it, sort of wilting away, almost definitely fin rot. So as most things, infections imply that a cleaning is due in some capacity. Betta fish usually live in isolation. You usually just have one. So you don't have to worry about quarantining. But if this is happening with another fish, you usually want to quarantine them in a separate tank because fin rot can spread. You want to do some water cycles. You want to clean your filters out. You're going to want to treat the water with there's a variety of different things. And this is where you might want to speak to a vet or an expert on identifying the type of fin rot, and then B, the product that you need to address it. There's tablets. There's even prescriptions that you could get from a vet to treat the tank with. But the important thing is that this is not that the tank is dirty, especially bacteria just happen, especially in fish tanks. And there needs to be a certain level of bacteria in a tank to promote a healthy living environment. But it is a matter of getting the tank clean of that either bacteria or fungus. And then to prevent it, it's just keep everything clean. Don't overcrowd the tank. Make sure the tank is the right size for the fish. I've seen a lot of betta fish that are in tanks that are just too small. Those tiny little fish bowls, typically not big enough for even a single fully grown fish. So maybe it's time for a bigger tank. Maybe it's time for a better filter. Maybe it's just time to sort of upgrade that ecosystem for your scaly little friend.
God, great. I'm impressed, Chris. That was really
Sometimes good. It's like when you're watching Jeopardy and they ask one and you sort of point at the TV and you're like, I know this one. Yes. But meanwhile, they've asked 49 other questions in the show. You had no idea. That's how I felt when I read that question. I was like, oh my goodness, like it's a fish question I know the answer to.
Today was your day. Thank you, Olivia.
Today was my day.
For that question.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. But as always, folks, when your animal is sick, don't trust me. Don't. You'd be foolish. I'm just some guy on the internet. Do you know how many people get on the internet and lie? Don't trust me. Go to your vet, get some expertise. But hopefully, I have given you some peace of mind to know that everything's going to be okay. This is 100% curable and preventable, and gave you some tips and tricks. But go see the vet.
All right, Chris, it's that time. We've got to wrap up the show.
It is. Yeah, it's that time. The bad news is it's the end of our show. The good news is we'll be back next week.
That's right. We've got some more awesome guests.
Yeah, new episodes come out every single Tuesday. We'll have new guests, new stories, new products, and new questions. Again, if you want your question answered, petsaddlife.org/podcast. You can write in, you can leave us a voice memo. If you like the show, wherever you're listening to it, leave us a nice review, some nice comments. If you don't like the show, leave us a nice review anyway, and then give us some feedback on what we could do better. Like, subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with your dog, share it with your fish. We want everybody to listen to our great show. And for you for listening, thank you genuinely for listening today. And we'll hear from you again soon.
Pets Add Life.